to order. And we will begin this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by words of inspiration, which if you will stay standing following the pledge, that would be appreciated. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you'll remain standing, please, we will welcome Wade Mitchell from the Grace Apostolic Church for our words of encouragement.
Let's all pray. God, we thank you for this day. We thank you, Lord, for your many blessings. Lord, we thank you for our mayor, our city council members, and the people of this great city. God, help us to gain and get understanding today and gain wisdom to move forward in one mind, in one accord, to the benefit of the constituents of the city of Clawson. Be with us in every word and every deed done and said tonight. God will give you the thanks and praise for it all, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please.
Mayor Milan.
I am here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Present.
Councilmember Sampson.
Here.
Councilmember Shepard.
Here.
That is a quorum, Madam Mayor.
Okay, great. And would anyone like to do approval of the agenda?
I'll move the agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
Okay. Our agenda has been approved.
What a vote.
You want a roll call on that?
I don't know that it's necessary. Sure, if you'd like to do a roll call. Sure, let's do a roll call.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepard. Yes.
Great, thank you. We all agreed on approval of agenda. Good start. First thing on the agenda after that will be public comment for items that are on the agenda. So if you would like to come before us and you have something you'd like to say for items that are on the agenda, you may come to the podium. Please state your name and address, and then you may tell us what you would like. If you have items that are not on the agenda, we will have another public discussion towards the end of the meeting that you'll be welcome to address council at that time as well. Is there anyone here?
Hello, Nate Hara, lived in Clawson for 11 years now. Just one quick question as we're having a presentation on the ARP Act funding. If whoever's presenting that could be specific about what participation in the plan represents from a commitment perspective from the city going forward. So if there's essentially any requirements as the city or duties that the city would have to fulfill in acceptance by taking that money, it would be great to know. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, great. Then we'll move on to the next item, which is consideration of approving the following consent agenda. First item is accepting the resignation of Michelle Zukowski of the Traffic and Safety Board. And the next item is a list of bills as presented in the amount of $763,557.71. And I would like to say thank you to Michelle for her years of service. We truly appreciate all of our volunteers. And if anyone's interested in filling a seat on the Traffic Safety Board, apparently we have an opening.
Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
The vote?
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepard.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
That passes.
Right. Next item will be presentations and proclamations. We have a presentation tonight from the Michigan Municipal League on the American Rescue Plan Act. I would like to welcome Chris Hackbarth and from the MML and Tim Dempsey from the PSC. And I'm sorry I messed up your name. I told you I shouldn't have written it down.
That's okay. Good evening. Tim Dempsey with Public Sector Consultants and Chris Hackbarth with the Michigan Municipal League. We're pleased to be here this evening and want to give you an overview of the American Rescue Plan Act. The Michigan Municipal League and the Public Sector Consultants, we've been working closely together, helping communities across Michigan kind of navigate the funding. So we're just going to kind of work back and forth here as a team this evening, and I'm going to let Chris start out, and he's going to talk about the MML a little bit, just a quick intro for those of you that aren't familiar, and then I'll talk a little bit about PSC, and then we'll get into the
Are
funding.
you going to provide your slides to the administration? You're going to provide your slides later on to the administration, so we can have them.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor, council members. Appreciate the opportunity to have us here. Again, Chris Hackbarth with the Michigan Municipal League. I'm the director of our state and federal affairs team in Lansing, handling a lot of our advocacy and lobbying work. As you can see, Clausen is a member of the league. The league represents just about every city and village in the state, including a few urban townships. Our partner organizations, Township Association and County Association, we all work very closely in concert. The league represents every aspect of your operation. So from elected officials, department heads, I work closely in my role with finance directors, treasurers. I handle a lot of tax policy related issues in addition to the federal issues. So as you can see, we work with a lot of affiliate organizations. We have our foundation, and then we work as kind of your partner with the National League of Cities, which is the federal entity that represents municipalities in Washington, D.C. And we work closely with National League of Cities during this conversations this last year with the CARES Act and other federal stimulus, and then the American Rescue Plan, and continue to work with them on the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and others. So thank you for having us.
And public sector consultants, again, we've been hired by the Michigan Municipal League to provide technical assistance for ARPA, but we're an objective, nonpartisan public policy research and consulting firm based in Lansing. We've been around Michigan for over 40 years. We're a certified women-owned business. And, we provide just a lot of collaborative solutions to communities for a whole host of issues, including ARPA. But stepping back for a moment and looking at what we've seen to date in terms of federal support, this is a slide that we share with a lot of communities because it's sort of a reminder of where we've been over the last 20 months during the pandemic in terms of the federal dollars that have been flowing out into communities. So if you look, I'm not going to go through all of these, but these are the various acts in billions of dollars that have been passed at the federal level. The CARES Act being the first really big one at $1.7 trillion. The Consolidated Appropriations Act that followed at $900 billion. And then, of course, the American Rescue Plan Act that we're going to talk about tonight at $1.9 trillion. Pretty substantial, over $5 trillion altogether. And what we're looking at here in terms of dollars, of course, this doesn't include the recently passed infrastructure bill at the federal level as well. So additional funds that will be coming into local governments. In terms of the American Rescue Plan, again, $1.9 trillion designed to help communities overcome the pandemic, its impacts, both from a health perspective, but also from an economic perspective. $350 billion that are going directly to states and local governments. And the first time really in the history that we're seeing dollars from a program going to all 19,000 plus local units across the country. And they're going to be handled in two tranches of payments. The first one in 21, which most communities have already received, and the second half to follow in 22. In terms of eligible expenditures, where can communities, spend these dollars? This is really one of the important questions that we hear a lot from. First, of course, it's responding to the pandemic, both the negative economic consequences as well as the negative health impacts. So this can be everything from direct support to households, small businesses, nonprofit organizations, impacted industries, including tourism, travel, and hospitality. The key here, though, is that a household, an individual, a business, a nonprofit either have to demonstrate a negative impact to them, like on an individual basis, it would typically be a lower income household or somebody who's experienced unemployment because of the pandemic. From a nonprofit standpoint, it would be a nonprofit that has seen revenue loss potentially and or is providing services, those direct services to households themselves. So this can be one or the other in terms of supporting a nonprofit, for instance. And then the small business support, we've seen a number of programs and efforts that are helping, again, small businesses that have seen a decline in revenue, a drop in customers, kind of those impacts that have resulted from the pandemic. Second big category is premium paid eligible workers. Those are ones who have been out in the public who have had potential exposure to COVID-19. Of course, we think from a municipal side, always of our public safety, police, fire, EMS, those types of staff who have been out in the community and have potential exposure. But it's also people that maybe have kept a facility running or operating during the pandemic. And the intent here, if you read closely the guidance, it really talks about trying to help the lowest paid workers who have had that exposure. So trying to lift up incomes of employees that maybe have been underpaid, thinking of people like janitorial staff or others who maybe aren't as highly paid. The one that provides the most flexibility is number 3, the provision of government services, to the extent impacted by a reduction in revenue. So there is a revenue loss calculation. The federal government has a formula that you work through, and each community calculates that out. In that dollar amount, then, you really have the ability to spend up to whatever that calculation is in pretty much any service that you're currently providing. So whatever the city currently does across the board, you can use those dollars essentially to fund those ongoing kind of programs and services. In terms of what that revenue loss looks like, it varies widely. We've seen organizations that the revenue loss is only a small amount, maybe 5 or 10% of their allocation, but we've worked with organizations where their revenue loss has actually exceeded their total allocation. So it just varies depending on the type of organization and what kind of revenue you've seen, because it's based on some historical revenue numbers. And then the last one outside of these categories would be investment in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. So the state has clean water and drinking water state revolving fund guidelines that indicate what would be eligible for water and sewer. And then broadband, it's really about, number 1, providing services where it's not provided today, and or raising the level of service to a higher quality. The FCC, Federal Communications Commission, has a standard of 25 megabytes download, 3 megabytes upload. The feds in this program are trying to raise that to 100 megabytes. They call it symmetrical service. So basically, a level of service that you could, play a lot of video games at home and download a lot of movies all at once, is the way we explain it. So that's the other potential category of expenses.
I think it's important to note under that last category, there is no connection that's required to the pandemic. The federal government has determined that those investments in water, sewer, stormwater, broadband can be done just as investments, that you don't have to show any linkage with COVID-19.
And then just the last programmatic note, and then I'll turn it over to Chris. Funding has to be obligated by December 31st, 2024, so you have to have your dollars approved in terms of where they are going, where they're going to be spent, and then they actually have to be expended. The dollars have to be out the door by December 31st, 2026. So it does give communities some time in which to figure things out and determine where they want their dollars to go. And I mentioned earlier the revenue loss. Those calculations are going to be done 4 times. So they'll be done for 2020, 21, 22, and 23. And that's the other interesting thing about this program. The federal government actually has some good foresight here to recognize that a lot of local governments, when there's a recession or some other negative impact, a lot of times revenue decline is a lagging indicator because of property taxes often lag the economy. If we think of Great Recession, it hit in 08 and 09, but it was really 10, 11, 12, and that we saw communities greatly impacted by that decline. So this kind of accommodates for that. So thinking about, okay, what might revenue loss look like in 20, and then thinking ahead about what that could be in the future is important so you can accommodate for that. With that, Chris is going to talk about the broader kind of impact here.
And just kind of finishing off where Tim left, the other benefit of that kind of long opportunity to make those expenditures, it gives, again, these dollars are going across nationally, across the state, to every local unit. So there's an opportunity to do some planning, not have to do the shovel-ready may not be the best investment necessarily long-term in terms of asset management. This gives you the opportunity to actually look at some of that asset management, look at some of that longer-term planning, plan for contracting and having contractors available for projects. So that was, some of the thought process that went into the timeline here as well. When we look at what the American Rescue Plan means for Michigan, it's important to remember. Tim mentioned it's a $1.9 trillion act. $350 billion of it went to states and locals. $1.5 trillion, though, is still being distributed throughout all different federal agencies. A lot of focus on healthcare, a lot of focus on education. So you saw the state in the budget earlier this summer. The state utilized a significant sum of their dollars to go into school aid spending. That was one of the eligible expenses. You see that with kind of throughout all the different federal agencies. A whole host of grant programs that states, some regions, some local units are eligible to apply for. Some of it started as early as this October. Others are coming in the spring. So you'll see, in addition to this $350 billion we're talking about nationally here, you'll also see other dollars flowing into the state as the state applies for those grant funds. When we're talking about, though, this $350 billion, what came to Michigan was about $11 billion total. So $6.5 billion directly to the state. Again, this is all split in two tranches. So half came in May, the other half will come this coming May. $6.5 billion to the state. $1.9 billion was then spread amongst the 83 counties. $1.8 billion was spread amongst the 49 metropolitan cities. Those are typically cities above 50,000 in population, cities that are direct community development block grant eligible entities. The counties, the state, and those metro cities receive their funds directly from the federal government. Then there are the rest of the state, 1,724 cities, villages, and townships. Again, those usually less than 50,000 in population, not normally community development block grant eligible directly. Those 1,724 communities will be splitting $644 million, $322 this year, $322 next year. I believe Clausen is already, I think we're at like 96% of all the non-entitlement units in the state have requested their funding and been accepted. The state is at the tail end now of getting all of those dollars out to those non-entitlement units. And again, the next tranche of those funds will come in the spring of next year. Sounds like a lot of money. $4.4 billion total coming to locals, $6.5 billion coming to the state. Got to put it in context, though. When you're looking at our 1,724 non-entitlement units, as they're referred to in the Act, that's an average, 80% of those will average less than $500,000 total. Over 60% will average less than $250,000 total. So you're looking at $125,000 this year and $125,000 next year. Not a lot of opportunity to do what we call transformational or generational investments at that level without having some opportunities to tap into other sources. So we've looked kind of statewide at the state level. It works out to be about $650 per capita. For non-entitlement units, it's $104 per capita. So it is definitely something. The context is important. The state has a lot of funds available. Some of the other local units, counties, are able to spread those dollars. But when we're talking about the bulk of our communities in Michigan, they're in a little different scope. So we at the League have set up a program to provide some assistance across our membership. Again, we represent all 533 cities and villages in the state, ranging in size, small communities, large communities, the Upper Peninsula, Southeast Michigan, rural, urban, suburban. So, recognizing the diversity of need and capacity that those local units have, we've teamed up with public sector consultants. We have staff on hand at the League as well. And we've been answering, just going through these first 6 months, year, answering a lot of technical questions. How do I apply for the funds? Where do I find the guidance? Where can I find information? When is the money going to arrive? How do I report on these funds? All those types of questions. And then starting to get into eligibility type questions. questions. Tim and I had a conversation the other day with a community. All right, hey, we just got approved for our Main Street program through the state. We'd like to invest some of these funds in our DDA so that we can operate our new Main Street certified program. How do we do that? And so Tim and the team at the league have been working in concert to answer those questions and also to dig in a little deeper, to get into some of those more intensive questions, larger communities that are really looking at, okay, how do we have this conversation across our whole community? How do we bring in focus groups and do strategic planning? And what are we looking at? So that's some of what we call our Serve My City program. I'm happy to answer questions. If you have any on that, Tim's been working with that. Now, Tim, any other things you want to say? Okay, so this has been a good, initiated this program last year with the CARES Act. Again, helping our communities be able to draw down some of those dollars. The key difference, I think, between the American Rescue Plan and the CARES Act last year, CARES Act provided the funds to the state and 5 local units in the state, so 4 counties and the city of Detroit received funding. Other than that, all of the money went to the state of Michigan. Now, we were able to work with the state of Michigan and secure over $400 million in funding for local units in terms of public safety payroll reimbursement, in terms of hazard pay for first responders, reimbursement for some revenue sharing reductions that took place last August. So, but those were again state dollars. The state had to appropriate them. In this instance, these dollars, these American Rescue Plan dollars, have come. The state, some of them came directly to local units. The state, though, was required to pass along the $644 million to the non-entitlement units. And as we look at some of the other ways that communities are engaging on this, we've obviously, as I mentioned, partnered heavily with National League of Cities on this. They have what they're calling their Grant Navigator program. So they've actually set up an analytics system to help communities identify sources for what their allocation could go towards, what grants are out there, what other opportunities there are to team up. And so that's a program. That program will actually help communities do some grant writing as well. So that's something we've been promoting to our membership. We talked about it this last earlier this fall when we had our convention in Grand Rapids. They also have some resources, and we've posted some resources on our site about what other communities are doing, both in Michigan and around the country. How are other communities looking at spending their funds or looking at allocating their dollars? And then from a organization level, on our advocacy side, and we recognize the state has $6.5 billion. State can't spend that $6.5 billion on themselves. They can't supplant their own budget with that. They're looking at making investments with their dollars as well. Again, following the same guidelines that local units are required to follow. So we've already been engaged in conversations with the state on a $2.5 billion water supplemental. So water and sewer, PFAS, lead and copper contaminants. How can the state have those dollars made available to local units to tap into? No pun intended. Also looking at, the governor, you've probably seen everybody's jockeying with their volleying back and forth with their proposals for spending funds. There was a $250 million proposal out of the House this week to spend money on public safety. The governor has a $400 million proposal for state and local parks investments. The governor has a $2 billion economic development proposal out there. We've seen the Senate, the House, the administration all put out differing proposals. The League has actually put together a coalition of over 50 organizations in conjunction with our partners at the Michigan Townships Association, Michigan Association of Counties, Restaurant Lodging Association, Home Builders, SEMCOG, a number of groups. And we've kind of come together and said, what are some priorities that are important for communities overall? And so we've put together a coalition and a proposed spending plan that we have been pitching to the state as a coalition, pitching to leadership, and hoping, again, to get those dollars identified at the state level so that all of you can understand what you have access to so that you can make the best decision about how to spend your funds. One of the toughest things I think we've had to answer is as communities are calling us and saying, hey, we'd love to help our residents who have arrearages on their water bills. And I'm like, that's great, except you might want to hold on. There's $600 million that the Michigan State Housing Development Authority has available for rental housing assistance, and that includes utility bills. The state of Michigan just set up a more than $100 million pot of funds called their Homeowner Assistance Fund. And those funds are available for utility bills, for tax bills, overdue tax bills. So there's a lot of funding out there and a lot of funding still coming for programs that you'll want to look at to make sure before you make your decisions on what might be the best way, most effective way you can stretch your dollars the most. So, those are some of the things that we've got some links on here. Again, when you get the presentation copies, there are some great resources that not only that MML and National League of Cities have, but also that U.S. Treasury has put out and Michigan Department of Treasury have put out, just to give you some basic facts on what's going on with the American Rescue Plan. Talk a little bit about.
Yeah, just to try to wrap things up here, because I know we're getting long in time and you probably have questions. Just in terms of strategy in the process, what we've talked to communities about is really take those documents you already have created and you have in hand and start there, because a lot of times we joke about these plans that sit on shelves, but oftentimes they have strategies and transformational projects you just can never get to because you don't have the resources. So whether it's a master plan, your CIP plan, start there. And then think about the stakeholder engagement process. I think that question came up earlier already by a speaker. The act itself doesn't necessarily have requirements for engagement per se for non-entitlement units, but they strongly encourage it. And it's just part of kind of good, transparent government to engage everybody, to hear the voices and get the ideas from residents, from the business community, from philanthropy, and potentially some of those groups can be partners as well. And then thinking about potential projects, Chris already touched on that. What are those transformational investments that have a long-term return on investment or projects? And then how can they leverage other dollars, either other federal dollars coming or state money, or maybe it's the philanthropic dollars that might be at the table as well, finding ways to match funding program. But with all of that, strategy is important, but you still have to meet program requirements. You still have to do reporting, and you have to ensure that if there are other funding opportunities, what's the timing look like compared to the time frame for this decision process? So we've been encouraging people, take your time with this and think it through. But at the same time, if there's another funding opportunity that ARPA can help leverage, then it may be important to kind of move things along a little more quickly. In terms of, project possibilities, of course, handling any revenue shortfalls is going to be critical. That's one of the key intents of this fund, cover those shortfalls. Capital improvements is another potential opportunity. Outside of that water, sewer, and broadband, you can do capital improvements if you have the dollars that are demonstrated through revenue loss. And then some of those more proactive projects that we're seeing, there's a lot of interest across the state in affordable housing. We recognize the challenge and the high cost of housing these days, but particularly on the affordable side. So finding creative ways to do that by partnering with nonprofits or identifying different groups that can benefit from that support. I mentioned earlier supporting businesses. We've seen organizations provide grant dollars directly to businesses who demonstrated that need through the pandemic. And then helping individuals disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. This is language that is repeated frequently in the interim final rule, the U.S. Treasury guidance that talks about addressing those disadvantaged populations and underserved populations as part of this is really critical. And then amplifying for impact. We encourage people, don't leave money on the table. I think there has been maybe a handful of communities that said, we just don't want the money. Even if it's a small amount, we tell every community, you can find something to spend it on, right? There's a water main or there's there's some sort of project somewhere that you can spend this on. Seek partnerships with other entities. Oakland County, I think, they've been talking at the Michigan Association of Counties about their process. They've got, I think, $243 million of ARPA dollars. I think it's the third highest amount in the state after Detroit and Wayne County. They're interested to hear what locals are doing. Hopefully they've reached out, or if they haven't, that's a possible engagement. Again, business philanthropy, looking at those other state resources, something ongoing. But really, these are opportunities maybe to work with particularly other local governments that maybe you haven't before. Obviously, you can't spend the money you receive outside of your jurisdiction, but the county can spend it countywide. So there's the potential to leverage dollars there, and the same goes with the state. But in the end, I think what we encourage people to do is, think innovatively to the extent that you can do that, but also build resiliently, and that's coming up with programs and projects that have a long-term payoff for your community and for your residents, right? Because that's ultimately what this is about. It's their money. They're the taxpayers who've contributed to that, so they're the ones that should see that benefit. So with that, Chris, I don't know if you have any last comments?
I just think it's important to remember you have some time. You don't have to make decisions yesterday. The federal government has allowed this window of time till 2024 and 2026 to spend. There's a lot still coming. We are hearing the legislature is looking at a supplemental potentially on the water and sewer issue yet at the end of this year. Economic development, we've been told, is another major bucket that they intend to put a large supplemental together. So there's going to be, and then again, you've got this federal infrastructure bill that was just signed yesterday by the president, and those dollars should begin flowing out through the first quarter of next year. So, as we look at your opportunities and where you can invest the funds that Clausen has received, that's important to kind of, again, take your time and think about those opportunities, where you can tap in, where you can leverage your dollars, and who your partners might be.
Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone in the audience have any questions for these gentlemen while they're here? And I see Clausen's so fortunate that our other elected officials are very active in our community. We have with us today Padma Kupa, who's our state rep in the back, and I also see our beloved Penny Lubes, our Oakland County representative. And if either of you would like to come and add anything to this information, we would welcome you. And thank you, Chris Hackbarth and Tim Dempsey, for your time and for your presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Milan and the newly elected council member. Good to be here in front of you. When I was here last time, I had talked about Serve My City, which was the guidance that Michigan Municipal League has provided to municipalities on how to use the American Rescue Plan dollars. The other thing that, since my last time here, is there's a website called myroadmap.com. And I see that you have a former planning commissioner here in the audience. I'm a former planning commissioner from Troy. And myroadmap.com is probably one of the best things. It's like closest thing to a master plan for our state that you should definitely read it. It's good information. Many stakeholders across the state have made recommendations on what we can do because we are in need of fixing our water infrastructure, improving our broadband, and so many other things. And they've really taken the ideas of placemaking and some of those critical components that will bring people into the state and into our local communities and what we can do. And then the last thing I'll mention is that both the governor and the legislative leadership are in agreement on spending some money on our public safety. And so I've started some conversations both with Chief Nastasi in Troy as well as with Chief Sarvello because I've been interested in that particular issue because we are short of recruits in Troy. I think there are about 12 or 15 people short. And I know that your department also is in need.
We're down 3 at this point.
Yeah. So we really want to make sure that we provide the training, the resources. But again, there are smarter brains than me on how to spend that money. I just know that I'm here to be accessible to you and to provide resources to you and information to you. So please don't hesitate to reach out. 517-373-1783, Padma Kupa at house.mi.gov.
Thank you so much. And thank you for helping to organize having our visitors here today for this information.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for recognizing us. We do at the county received $122 million to date. We'll receive $122 million next year. And we are thoughtfully planning on how to spend the money. We've had some town hall meetings, specifically regarding our senior citizens. We have talked to mental health professionals. We've talked to Oakland schools. We are looking at all aspects, which bucket will help best serve the people in Oakland County. And we don't want to do something that another group is already doing. So they're absolutely right. The collaboration is the key. To date, out of that money we have spent $14 million on mental health services. So that's going out to different agencies to help support counseling in schools right now, and in our hospital emergency rooms when mental health emergencies arise. But that's what we spent so far, and we are looking at different pots, different buckets where our money's going to go.
Well, we're fortunate that you know what our needs are, and we know you're going to fight for us, so thank you in advance.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, I had a question regarding, as our Commissioner Lubes had mentioned regarding our Oakland schools, what amount, if any, can be applied to school infrastructure? And obviously that wouldn't necessarily come through us, but is that something that the state would be looking at spending, or how would that apply?
In terms of school infrastructures and buildings and buses and things like that?
Yes.
Again, I think that's all going to be determined through separate allocations. The state received a whole separate set of funding related to education. They put an additional $1.7 billion, I think, into the school aid budget this year. Yeah, I mean, so there's a significant increase in funding. How they've allocated it across infrastructure versus instruction, I don't have those details.
Okay.
But that's something we can work with Rep. Koopa to find for you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anyone else?
Well, the other thing too is, so obviously there's communities that may be of similar size, but they also have different needs. We don't have any bridge infrastructure or anything like that. So the way that we would receive that amount wouldn't depend on whether or not we have that type of infrastructure.
So the dollars from the American Rescue Plan, so the $1.239 million the city is receiving, is again eligible across all of those categories. So, we recommend folks run the revenue loss calculation first. Figure out what kind of your most flexible amount of money is. Mm-hmm. And that's what you can then use for, any government service at that point. And then you start running through the other three categories. Okay, what, is there a premium pay issue for essential workers? Is there a water, sewer, or broadband or stormwater investment we want to make? Is there some sort of investment to combat the impacts of the pandemic on our economy or our residents? That's the one that's a little more nebulous. It potentially gives you more room, but also there's more guidelines you have to follow. So you could look at, as Tim mentioned, you could look at housing. You could look at economic development, depending on what's going on. So you could look at that assistance to small businesses. So those are the types of things I think you get to choose from that pot of money. But separate from that, there will be scores of dollars available that communities could tap into. Again, the state may create a program for additional investments in historic preservation. And so you may want to then utilize your dollars to tap in with that. Mm-hmm. The states, for some of our shoreline communities, been a lot of conversation about high water erosion and impacts. So there may be some dollars put into things like that. As I mentioned, the PFAS and other contaminants. You had the green ooze issue in Madison Heights nearby. Those types of things, there will be other dollars the state will make available for those things. And so you might have an opportunity to leverage your dollars in with a program like that. So again, it might not be evident today, but you become more and more clear those opportunities in the next probably 6 months.
Okay, but that legislation that may come with additional funding it may be on the horizon. It may be additional. We can't wait forever for those to come in order to help, spread that cost.
No, certainly, and that's one of the conversations we've been having with the legislature. Is look, local governments are getting pressure to appropriate their dollars. The state needs to provide some guidance on where their funding is going to go. I talked to a community in Southwest Michigan, and they were like, "Well, we've got this great offer from a broadband developer, and we'd like to broadband in our area because we don't have service. And if we just put our money up and then do a special assessment, they'll come in and do this. And I said, also a great idea, but hold on, the state's got $250 million specifically dedicated towards broadband. They just have to appropriate it and set it up. And then you've got this new federal infrastructure that has broadband money. So you may not need to spend all of your allotment on broadband. There may be this. So, if you've got the opportunity to take time, I encourage you to do that.
Okay. So potentially we could have a hierarchy of what we want to spend it on, and then 6 months later find out that there's new legislation that could potentially add to that, and then all of a sudden our priorities may change as a result.
I certainly think you should be as flexible as you can.
Okay.
Again, set up those priorities, but also be cognizant that you may swap them around as other dollars become available.
Okay. Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you
Very
very much,
informative,
Deb.
good information. So the next thing on our agenda tonight will be a public hearing. We'll be having a public hearing on the reprogramming of $8,842.44 of community development block grant funds from the 2019 program year, removal of architectural barriers to the 2022 program year project. Nick Stepnitz, are you going to come before us with this? Nick is our assistant to the city manager, and he's doing a great job with managing our CDBG for the past 2 years now, right? Or has it been longer? I don't know.
I think this might be the third year.
Oh, my word. Nick,
Losing
you're
track
getting
already.
old.
So I hope you guys, first off, good evening. I hope you've, the new members of council had the opportunity to read the memo about the 2022 program year CDBG. Just to give a brief overview tonight, this community development block grant is funded through the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and Oakland County administers funds to municipalities in the county. These projects are intended for revitalization projects and public services. So in the past couple of years, Clawson has done removal of architectural barrier projects, so installing truncated domes. And so we'd like to continue that project for 2022. And because we have leftover money from program year 2019 from a removal of architectural barrier project, we'd like to reprogram that to use it in next year's project. So if you guys have any questions, I would love to answer them. Of course, after the public hearing, if anyone from the member.
I would like to open up the public hearing. Would anyone from the public like to speak regarding this topic? Seriously, no one wants to talk about architectural barriers or CDBG funds for $8,000? Okay, I'll take that as a no. We'll close the public hearing. Would anyone like to make a this thing?
Well, so what was it that was used for? What was the project that the money was left over from?
So it was also a removal of architectural barrier project, and so that's why we're reprogramming that money from 2019 to a 22 project, because that money can be used easier in the same type of project classification.
What was it exactly?
It was the install on truncated domes. I can't remember the intersection. I think it was Selfridge and Weebick.
Okay.
So that was leftover money.
And why was it because we had expected it to be cost a certain dollar amount, and then they came under that? And how was it that we were able to get under what we had expected?
So for every project through the CDBG, it goes out for public bid. And so Hartwell Cement Company, they bid on it, and they already had this sidewalk replacement program. And so their bid came in significantly cheaper than other contractors. Therefore, it came under that threshold of what we were allocated.
Okay. Okay.
Anyone else?
So,
Would anyone like to make a motion?
did you bring it up for new business?
I
We could just
already
tell
did
you.
the new business, didn't I?
Sure. You closed the public hearing, so now we're.
Sorry, I apparently forgot to say new business, which is kind of like old business because it's kind of the same thing, just being reapplied, so forgive me. So under new business, we have consideration of a resolution to reprogram $8,842.44 from the 2019 Community Development Block Grant Removal of Architectural Barriers Project to the 2022 program year.
So moved.
Thank you.
I was going to read it out again.
She read it.
I know.
Very well.
All right,
too.
second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes. Okay,
All
great.
set.
So we will be moving those $8,842.44 to the 2022 program year budget. Thank you very much. And then the next item is consideration of programming the 2022 program year Community Development Block Grant funds in the amount of $36,446. The City of Clawson is projected to receive approximately $36,446 for the CDBG program year 2022. There are two projects, apparently, Nick. Project one says Public Services Domestic Violence Funding Haven, allocated for $3,500. Project two is removal of architectural barriers at $32,946. Anyone want to?
Mayor, I move to approve the 2022 Community Development Block Grant application in the approximate amount of $36,446 and authorize the mayor to sign the application and submit the documents to Oakland County.
Support. I'll support that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Wonderful. We will spend the money, we will allocate the money, spend the money, and sign the application duly noted.
Thank you very much.
Next-
Will do.
Thank you, Nick, very much. The next item is consideration of approving the request by the Clawson Goodfellows to conduct their annual paper sale on Saturday, December 4th, 2021.
Mayor, I move to approve the request by the Clawson Goodfellows to conduct their annual paper sale on Saturday, December 4th, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion on that? I think we will agree that's a good thing to do.
Firefighter David O'Connell is in the audience and might
Oh.
want to speak real briefly to the public and
That'd be
the
great.
mayor and council on the topic.
More information, the better. Great.
Good evening, everyone. For those of you that don't know, I'm Dave O'Connell, president of the Clawson Goodfellows. For those of you that don't know who the Goodfellows are, we are members of the Clawson Fire Department and Police Department. And we raise money for those. Our motto is "No child goes without a Christmas." On December 4th, Saturday from like 9 to 1, we will be on the blocks of 14 in Maine and 15 in Crooks, raising money for that. Yeah, that's really about all I have. If you guys have any other questions, feel free.
Well, thanks for doing it.
You're very welcome.
We appreciate it.
Yep.
If
Oh.
people are not in that area, and I'm so sorry, on December 4th, is there a place where they can send donations?
Yes. Our P.O. Box is the Clawson Goodfellows, P.O. Box 239, Clawson, Michigan 48017. They can contact us via email at clawsongoodfellows@gmail.com.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
David, you take requests for people who know someone in need also through that email process as well.
Correct, yep.
So if there's someone out there who knows a family in need, Goodfellows process that information and those donations are put forward to those families that need it around the holidays.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming this evening. Where are we? We need a vote on
Let's get a
that?
vote on it. You ready?
Ready?
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
We're good to go.
Great. We'll look forward to seeing the Clawson Goodfellows Saturday, December 4th. Next thing on the agenda is consideration of establishing a financial workshop. And I am going to request that we hold off on establishing a financial workshop until we add our fifth person to council, if there's no need to do it immediately. I don't have information on that. If someone would like to give me more information, I'll be happy to hear.
It's just been a topic on council to budget review, moving into the capital improvement plan, to understand the budget better. We thought it would be a good idea for new council members to have that workshop and move forward. As we've had some comments about the budget, we just want to make sure everyone's clear on it. So it's up to council whether or not they move now on the workshop or not.
It's a public discussion. So whoever may be in the audience, whatever direction we go, it'll still be information that'll be available. Mayor, I move to establish a financial workshop for Tuesday, November 30th of 2021.
I support that.
November 30th?
Any comment other than me? Okay, so I'm going to just state again that I believe if we are looking at adding another additional person to our council within 30 days, it would behoove us to wait, especially as that person will be new, and have this financial workshop at this time when someone who can benefit from it will also be present. But saying that, we can take a vote.
Mayor Milan.
No.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
No.
That motion fails.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the next item. Consideration of approving the budget amendment for the Clawson Police Department to furnish and install police vehicle equipment.
Mayor, I move to approve the budget amendment for the Clawson Police Department to furnish and install police vehicle equipment in the amount not to exceed $26,000.
Second.
Officer or Chief Sorella, would you like to give
Take
a
over,
little
would you
history?
tell everybody what you told us?
We have received 2 new vehicles waiting at the dealership. It takes approximately $13,000 to outfit every vehicle. We've used Canfield for many years for the fact that they outfit all our vehicles the same way. So the money was requested through capital improvement. It hasn't moved yet through the budget process and the capital improvement process. So I work with the finance director to present the budget amendment so we can get our 2 new vehicles in place. They are replacing 2 vehicles that have currently right now 104,000 miles and going on 84,000. Those vehicles are starting to cost a lot of money for repairs and becoming unsafe, actually, for our officers. That is the reason for the request.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes,
You're all set, Chief.
we will be
Thank you,
furnishing
Mayor
and
and Council.
installing new equipment on our new vehicles. Next is consideration of approving the engagement letter addendum with EO and EOC PAs and business consultants.
And we do have Yo and Yo on Zoom, able to communicate.
Hello.
There we go.
Welcome. Would
Thank
you
you.
like to give us a little history of what we're engaging in here?
Sure, yeah.
need a
So
motion.
we initially engaged with the city in beginning, I believe, in August to conduct the June 30th, 2021 audit. And as a part of that, whenever you change auditors, we are required to audit initial balances by looking at the work papers of the predecessor auditor. In this case, we began our conversations with the predecessor in August and have been going back and forth, but not yet allowed to look at their work papers. So as a result of that, what we have to do is audit opening balances. So essentially go and audit the balance sheet of the 2020 balances to be comfortable with opening balances. So that means the cash balances, investments, pension and OPEB liabilities, debt, accounts receivable, accounts payable, essentially everything we have to audit for 2021 except for the income statement.
Great, I'm going to take a quick timeout because I made an error and did not ask for a motion to discuss this topic. So we're going to pretend you didn't say that, but we're going to come back and go, oh yeah, you already said that. So would someone like to make a motion? The person who brought it up might want to, maybe.
I move to improve the engagement letter addendum with Yo CPAs and business consultant for the amount not to exceed $15,000.
Very well done. May we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Now we can proceed. Thank you for that information. Right, sorry.
As you were saying.
Okay,
I
so,
got a question for the attorney. Is this something that we can go after the other experts we used to have and make them give the information that they're supposed to give?
So the answer is yes. The process for doing so obviously will be a legal process in court. I've reached out, and I know obviously Kelly has reached out as well. I mean, Ms. Rao, sorry, to seek the information,
Yeah.
and we've gotten nowhere. I'm afraid we haven't heard. So there is a process, and
What would be your suggestion?
I'm sorry.
What's your suggestion? To go after them to make
It may not be, it is technically ripe for a lawsuit now. However, I imagine in order for all the causes of action to be ripe for a lawsuit will be, it will behoove us and it will behoove this body to wait and see what we find based on whatever, you'll find out. And when they do the audit, they collect the information that they should have received from our prior auditors, just in case that there may be something there which may be the reason as to why we don't receive it. I don't know that that's the case, but just in case.
how long have we been waiting for information?
At least September or August, right?
And we started making requests in August.
Is it appropriate for you to make the requests, or should the requests come through the city? And I'm not saying the city didn't make the requests, but I think if I were the other company, I would say the city, who's my client, I would want them to make the request.
Sure. So the way that it's typically handled, and this is across all CPA firms, is we provide a letter to the city. The city will then sign and send that letter to the prior auditor. And that just acknowledges that the city is requesting that they release the work papers to us. And then we start making contacts with the prior auditor.
Have them letters gone out?
They have.
Yes.
There's
Just,
been emails, phone calls.
Just want to make one comment as far as your question, Councilman Sampson. At this point, if there is recourse to the prior auditors, unfortunately, there's a timing issue right now, and I'm not sure we would have time to make them provide the work papers to our current auditors.
What's the
So
timing
they-
issue?
we have to get the audit report done and file with the state of Michigan by the end of December. So the current auditors, Yo and Mike, have other clients, so there's only a certain amount of time that they will work on the city of Clausen's audit.
So, Mike, in good relations with the new client, how much longer can you give us to try and get this information from our former auditors so that we do not have to expend additional funds for this?
So that's a great question. I guess another week or two, but we're really pushing very, very close to the deadline to get it through all levels of review, including for Kelly's review. And then once the audit is issued, there's some procedures and steps that Kelly has to take to make sure that there's appropriate filings made, Form 65, Act 51 reporting, other things like that.
Okay, I wouldn't want to make anyone's jobs more difficult, yours or Ms. Rao's. However, $10,000 to $15,000 worth of funds of the city of Clausen are not a small amount of funds as far as I'm concerned. So I would like us to exhaust every possible avenue prior to saying we're going to just pay more. So as our legal counsel, what do you think you can do, Mr. Nushai, to try and expedite this one more time?
Yeah, I mean, I'll reach out again. I know I've sent a letter, I've emailed, and as recently as earlier this morning after communicating with Ms. Rao, I will do so again. I both will reach out and call and send a letter.
Would you suggest that we enter into agreement with Yo and then talk about going after them later?
Well, I mean, obviously, that's not a legal decision per se, so it's not a legal question per se. It's a business decision of this body. I hear the concern with respect to funds, if I may opine, but and timing is an issue.
It's a big issue. We've got 44 days, not including today,
We always
till the
end
end
up-
of the year.
We always end
So,
up
and not only
rushing.
that, but we have to have time for it to be presented to us so that we have an opportunity to put whatever feedback there is that we have to in order to prove it, in order to move it on to the state. So we're running out of time. In fact, we ran out of time in September. I don't understand how it is that a firm, how long did we use the previous firm?
Approximately 10 years. I
10
think.
years. All right, and we're left with, well, we don't have the information. I just, that bothers me. That really does. That, what else is there that we don't know? That now we're not going to get that information, and it's putting us at not just a timing issue, it's more than that. It's a serious, serious problem for our community. So,
Right. So where we're at is, it is a lot of money at this point. We have, obviously have to move on that to keep things moving, as Councilman Shepherd's indicating. It's a tight window.
yeah, this is yesterday's, and we can't delay this.
I agree 100% with you. We always end up running into short deadlines.
Yeah, so all things being equal, the fastest way would be get the papers from the previous firm, right, as opposed to you having to recreate the wheel, right?
That's correct. The best option is to be able to look at those prior work papers. But again, I feel like we've exhausted all options. We've been reaching out for the past 3 months. So I've presented this other option.
Yeah, I don't see it changing, right? I mean, we've got 45 days, they lasted 90 days without giving us that information. So I think we need to move forward as quickly as possible.
If we pass this, is this something you can start tomorrow?
If this is passed, I'll provide an assistance listing to Kelly detailing what I will need to be able to do the audit of the 2020 balance sheet.
Okay, make it easier for you guys. Call the vote.
I'm just going to state that I'm not comfortable forking out $15,000 for documents that exist without giving it another. I'd like to see what's been done. I'd like to know what's been done. I'd like to know, we've never had a problem with them in the past. Why are we having a problem with them now? I don't understand that.
I just would like to reiterate that we have made multiple attempts to contact PSLZ. Yo has made multiple attempts. They have had discussions with the prior auditors. I've had one discussion with the prior auditor as well as multiple emails. Rennis also has had multiple emails sent to them, letters sent to them, and I think at this point we do need to move forward. If there's any recourse to collecting those charges from the prior auditor, I don't know if that's a possibility.
It is.
So.
Do we have to make a separate
Kelly-
motion for that?
Kelly, you're recommending that
I'm
we
sorry.
do this today?
That would be my recommendation.
Okay.
All right, and I apologize, so,
I have a question. So we're talking about $15,000 to recreate data that we can't get a hold of. Am I hearing that, understanding correctly? Okay, we're in a tight time window. What are the cost implications of missing the deadlines? We're balancing two costs.
So the
Which
cost-
poison are we going to swallow?
The cost implications would be the possibility of losing our state shared revenues, which is far more than $15,000 if we don't file timely our financial report.
Mr. Neshai, would you please explain to us what the process would be for you to recoup our expenditures if we were to go ahead and approve this evening?
Yeah, so once once we expend the money, then the damages will be due. We will have been damaged in whatever amount we spend. So if that is $15,000, we will have a claim for, at very least, for breach of contract, breach of fiduciary duty for at least $15,000.
So what will that cost us what additional fees will it cost us to recoup the $15,000? Because I know you're on retainer, but
Right.
I'm not really sure how this works, but I'm assuming separate fee, so.
Separate fee for
and
litigation.
That's not disrespectful, it's
No,
just.
not at all.
Let's
Not-
figure this out for real.
No, absolutely, not at all. I don't think it is at all. It is separate, obviously, because it's additional litigation. It's not covered by, our contract. So we bill hourly. It depend. I would imagine, and even though this can be, or these can be famous last words, I imagine once they receive a complaint and summons with respect to this, I don't see how we continue beyond that, but then again, that's what lawyers do. Lawyers litigate. So I imagine an attorney will be involved on the other side. It is $15,000. It's not, it's not an insignificant sum of money, but it's not a huge sum of money either. It will be handled at a district court. They're out of Livonia, is their address. So we would have a choice of a venue, whether it be either at our district court here, 52-4 District Court, since all the events that transpired happened here in the city of Clawson, and that would be our proper venue, or we can sue Livonia. I would opt, obviously, for our district court. It would be, it's hard to estimate costs as to what the final cost will be, but I don't know that it's a huge amount of litigation involved, so.
You'll add them in at the end anyway, won't you?
I'm sorry?
You'll add them in at the end anyway, won't you?
I still didn't hear.
You'll add them in for the settlement anyway, won't you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we follow the American system of attorney fees where primarily everybody pays for their own unless there's a specific statute covering that particular, the particular claim. One of the reasons why I say that we would have, it would be wise to wait is to see what the report ultimately, what you'll find is that there may be, and I don't know at this time, but there may be additional causes of actions that are found there pursuant to that. We can file a lawsuit at the moment that we expend the money because there's enough causes of action. There's a cause of action there. Additional causes may come due. With the additional causes, depending on, God forbid, if we find there's something untoward, there may be some causes that do come in with attorney fees prescribed to them.
Why are we just addressing this now if
Good
we
question.
knew that it was so imperative that this be done and accomplished? So if it could have been resolved with a letter, a threatening letter, why didn't we send the threatening letter 30 days ago and not be worried about it now, where if we vote no on it, we're holding up our staff and we're holding up, causing potential harm to our community. But I personally get annoyed every time something comes before this council and it's only $10,000, it's only $15,000, it's only $25,000. I don't have, that's our money. Like, those are precious dollars that we could put towards something good if we're not parting them off on ridiculous things at the last minute. And that's frustrating to me.
So if I may, we had put out several questions to the previous auditor. They had notified Yo and Yo that they would provide them with the work papers. After several conversations, it was apparent that wasn't going to happen. And last week is when we finally had to make a decision on how to move forward.
We have an audit committee. How is it that they were not involved in this? And why was it now that they weren't provided that information? Or were they? Right? I mean, we have an audit committee that is part of this process, right? So how is it that, again, we're just finding out now, as opposed to with the audit committee and the process of going through this? I don't understand.
I don't know what emails they were included on. Ms. Rao would know if the audit committee was aware of any of these emails.
I do not have that answer. I know they were kept in the loop on some of the audit questions. The decision was made, I think, last Thursday to move forward with this. And it's here now today, so.
So we can't change that. But can we Can we request that you get your threatening letter out, Mr. Newshine, immediately?
My letter has been out. They've received it, some time ago. I'm happy to send another one.
I mean the one that you said will make them act. You
Oh.
mentioned, litigation that's going to make them act, right?
No, I'm happy to send a letter. The one that I said that will probably have, will receive communication right away because they must, is a complaint and summons. That's a complaint that we file in court. We can't file that until we expend the money because we must be damaged in order to make a claim for damages. So we can't file that tomorrow. We filed that, I don't know when we're going to pay yo and yo, but that's when we would be out the money. That's what we'd be able to file.
Okay. All right, well, I guess we should just call for a vote.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
No.
Councilmember Sampson?
Yes.
And it
Okay.
passes, Madam Mayor.
We are going to spend up to $15,000 to move this process along. Thank you very much for your time tonight, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next item on the agenda is consideration of placing the delinquent city billings on the winter 2021 tax roll. The city council is requested to place on the 2021 tax roll all unpaid city billings. The delinquent unpaid billings are for $3,920 for rental, $54,969.44 for water, and $58,889.44 for grant total of unpaid city billings.
Mayor, I move the list of delinquent city billings be placed on the winter 2021 tax roll.
I'll support that.
I see Stacy Hodges, our treasurer, is here. Stacy, do you have anything you want to add to this evening, or are we good? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Then if there's no conversation, let's have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
All set, passes.
Great. We will now put the delinquent city billings on the winter 2021 tax roll. The next item on the agenda is consideration of approving a resolution for the following licensed businesses to allow them to complete the Michigan Liquor Control Commission application to participate in the City of Clawson Social District. Charles Moondragon LLC, AKA Whiskey Taco Foxtrot, Clawson Woodpile Barbecue Shack LLC, which is Woodpile Barbecue, GKA Investments LLC, The Lucky Duck, Lang Inc., which is Renshaw Lounge, Melistas Investment Inc., Tavern on the Main, PTPL LLC, Mojave Cantina, Three Cats Cafe LLC, which is Three Cats, Vita Dosette LLC, Puma Chug, Weiss Distilling Company LLC, Weiss Distilling Company, White Wolf Japanese Patisserie LLC, White Wolf, and Zaioli Brown LLC, Zaioli's Modern Italian.
Very good. Mayor, I move to approve a resolution for a license to businesses A through K to allow them to complete the Michigan Liquor Control Commission, MLCC, application to participate in the City of Clawson Social District.
I will second that. Would anyone like to address this? I don't know if anyone has any questions on what the social district is. I know Joan's not here. You said you would take any questions, August?
Well, there's some folks might notice there's some businesses missing that have liquor licenses. They just didn't respond in time. They have the option to come to us anytime and bring it before council to join the party, so to speak. This is a formality. If this passes tomorrow, I fill out the resolutions, give them to each of the businesses, and they send them in. They're responsible at that point to send it into MLCC to participate.
Can you give who wants to give just a brief description of what this means when people, what the social district is, in case someone's listening today that wasn't part of our original conversation of what the social district is? Scott, you'd probably be great.
So the social district, it's going to be set up in the DDA. There's going to be borders, obviously. It has to be marked what the social district is. So what this means is you can go into any one of these businesses and get a to-go drink. I think the max, it's either a 12 or 16-ounce cup. It has to be in a special cup with a social district sticker on it. You can leave that establishment, stay within the social district, walk around downtown and have your beverage. You can't enter into another premises with a beverage from one of the other establishments. It kind of started in COVID. You know, when COVID and restaurants were having struggling times last year, some communities started this program, and Clawson's getting on board now. It's nothing more than If you have a wait for a restaurant and you want to grab a drink, stand outside at 14th and Main or walk around a little bit, that's what it gives you the ability to do. You can't leave the social district. At the end, each border of the district is a garbage can. You're going to have to, throw your cups and drinks in there before you actually leave the social district. So it will be marked. Clausen Social District is basically the 14th and Main area, sidewalk only, no parking lot. So it's in front of the restaurants and the businesses within the 14th and Main DDA area.
Great,
And
thank you.
Madam Mayor, I think it's worth noting that a lot of our residents have been to these social districts in other cities where they have a big parking lot, like party zone. This is not that. We do not have that designated area like other cities do. This is for traveling up and down the sidewalks.
Okay. And anyone else? Let's do a roll call.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson is abstaining from this vote. Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
I'll get those paperwork to the businesses tomorrow.
I think that the actual term is recusing
Recuse
himself.
myself.
Correct? It is?
Whatever you say, sir. We'll use your language. That's fine. I'll change that forthwith.
In the minutes now, later.
The next item on our agenda is old unfinished business. To my knowledge,
Yeah,
we
you
do
set
not
up,
have any
huh?
old unfinished business. So let's go to the next item on the agenda, which would be public comments for items that were not on the agenda today. If you are here or online and would like to address the council, we welcome you for any items that were not on the agenda today.
Good evening, Madam Mayor. I just want to congratulate you and the council members who won the election a couple weeks ago.
Thank you very much.
I do
Welcome
have
back.
Thanks, I guess. I have a few items I'd like to comment on this evening. In 2019, Reese Scripture won the election for mayor. I was at that organizational meeting after her election. Her predecessor and campaign opponent graciously began the meeting and peacefully handed off her seat. I was disappointed that Mayor Scripture did not afford this courtesy to her successor last night at the organizational meeting. I do assume she was hindered from attending by some circumstance out of her control, but I haven't heard or seen an explanation. I do want to point out that there are two council members here this evening who should be ashamed of their vote on November 3rd to appoint Mr. Georges to council. I've only heard or spoken to a couple people defending the decision, and those people have addressed only whether the decision was legal, but not whether it was the right thing to do. I've emailed council members Sampson and Shepherd about this. I haven't heard back from them. I would welcome an explanation of why they think it was the best thing for the city. They do have my contact information. Finally, I assume Mr. Georges is staying engaged during this time and will hear these comments. Residents are calling on him to withdraw from his appointment to city council. There is an online petition with 617 signatures urging him to do this. Social media like Facebook and Nextdoor have been overwhelmingly in favor of Mr. Georges stepping down and allowing the newly seated mayor and council to determine an appointment to that seat. The post-election 11th hour resignation and appointment may have been a clever way to ensure Mayor Scripture's influence on council remains in place, but it is yet another stain on the reputation of Clausen. Georges should resign. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excuse me, sir, would you please state your name? We have people who are interested in who you are.
Sorry for that.
That's okay, it was my fault.
Matt Albrick, 651 Broadacre.
Thank you, Mr. Ulrich.
Susan Moffett, 7263 on. I also want to follow up on Mr. Albrick's comments. And I think that anyone who's been paying attention has seen the havoc that's been wreaked on the city via specific members of council over the past 2 years. And I think that the reason that there is an increase in attendance and outcry for it to stop is that we've had enough and we need to move on in a peaceful and productive manner. And the only way to achieve that, well, there's two ways, actually. First of all, we implore Georges to resign and step away from the process and get to a place where we have someone who is clearly invested in moving the city forward in a proper and ethical manner to be seated. And secondly, we need certain council members to stop trying to work on building their own political power and start working specifically in the interest of the city. What we saw last night with the argument over someone wanting to continue to be mayor pro tem when there's new people that should be afforded that opportunity, that, as was mentioned, they have clear reputations and clear consciences moving forward. We need to allow that to happen and stop focusing on building our own political power. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the public who would like to speak?
Good evening, Mayor and members of council, and congratulations to the three of you who won election, but I'd like to point out, Mr. Shepherd, I don't know you, so I do congratulate you. It is a feat to be elected. But Mr. Anderson, I want to say congratulations to you. You're a newcomer, and you uphold everyone, and that's because of hard work. Mayor, I want to move on to your victory. It was really quite impressive. I did just a little bit of slight math work today and found out you polled over 55% of the votes. So my long time ago study of political science was if you achieve 58%, you win a landslide. You're not quite there, but it was very, very impressive. But so I was going through the results, and I looked, I said, Mayor, you defeated your opponent in precinct 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, as well as the absentee counting board. And just so people know, your opponent lives in precinct 4. You outpolled her in her own precinct. That's a feat. So I think your victory is a clear victory of ideas, vision, and a new direction. The future of this city has a clear way to go. It's a clear repudiation of vote for me because I have a name and I've lived here a long time. So all I want to say is several other things. One is I participated in a prayer out here the night before the election. And I'm a practicing Catholic. That's a little unusual for me. But I'm darn glad I came because it really taught me some things that I hadn't experienced before. So I wanted to say thank you for inviting me. I wasn't going to attend. I did attend. But also, as you know, I passed out literature on vote no for the charter, vote no for the marijuana issues, vote yes for you, and vote yes for you. So several things came out of it. I met my neighbors who I've never met before, and they live immediately behind me, so I met them at the prayer, and I met now other two neighbors who live sort of kitty corner to me. And it's really, I'm finally glad I have, because I've never been able to participate in my 37 years in local government in a local election, and this has really been a lot of fun. My daughter Maria helped me pass out literature to our neighbor. We pretty much had what I'll call the east side of town, the panhandle of Clawson. That's where I live, and she helped me do that. So Maria and also my niece Gabriella, they passed out literature. And one last comment, due to the 4 or 5 times I walked my neighborhood, I lost 5 pounds. Thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
My name is Gina Nadovich, and Mr. George isn't here, so I have a question for our attorney. When we saw that we had this ballot problem, I think that we had more than one way to remedy it, and I'm wondering if this was your advice to the council on how to remedy our situation, and why you chose that one. Do you know what I'm asking?
I understand, ma'am. This is
Do you
not
have
a
an
question and answer
Oh, I
format.
can't ask you that question?
Oh, no, you can ask me that question all day. I'm happy to address it in my city attorney report if that's what you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jan Bills, and I live on Grant Avenue, and I have one question for our attorney. Mr. Marucci, actually my new neighbor, he sent an email to everyone, and he had some specific things that he pointed out in the email. Are you going to address that tonight in your report?
Madam Mayor,
You may speak. I would love for you to speak. Yes.
I've addressed that with council.
So you'll address it tonight?
I've addressed that with
Oh, you
council
already have?
on prior occasion through a letter. I'm happy to make that letter available to Mr. Marucci and everybody else that is interested in it.
Okay, so we should email you to get,
Absolutely.
okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a reason you can't just answer her questions? Just
There was a
wondering.
legal opinion, and it's not, yeah. So I would be doing injustice to it if I were just.
I just asked. I just
No,
thought
I
they were
understand.
just questions. I just feel like, sometimes it's nice to just be done.
Sure.
But, yeah, thank you. I wasn't putting you on the spot, just wondering. Would anyone else like to speak tonight? Anyone online? I don't know who was online tonight. Going once? Oh, did you want to come on up?
Char Larson, 2164 Princeton, Troy, Michigan. I've been invested in the city for 23 years as a CEO of a credit union and as a member of the Chamber of Commerce for 23 years. Also, Clausen Troy Optimists president, and I was on the Clausen Community Foundation for 4 years. I am saddened by what I've been seeing. I am saddened by what we have to try to explain to business owners who said they want to leave the city. What do I say to them? What do I say to them, Mr. Shepherd and Mr. Sampson? This is not a child's game. This is the city residents that are asking you to do certain things, to stand up for them and to work for them. That is why I believe you were elected. I'm at a wit's end. It's so sad to see what we see on a daily basis. People are trying to be happy. Things have been horrible for the last few years. And I know you were not on the city council till recently, but Mr. Sampson, you have been. And some of the things that have gone on are just despicable. I don't know what to do anymore. What do I tell businesses when they say, I want to leave Clausen? I can't believe this is happening. What do I tell them? No, stay here. I want you to stay here. I want you to continue to support the city. I love this city. I might not live here. I'm only 3 miles away, but I've given my life the last 23 years, so much of my volunteer time, to this city. I care about it. I care what happens, and so do other residents. And shame on me. I had a flood last year, and then my Chuck got sick, and he was in the hospital and died of getting COVID in there. So I haven't really been with it the last months. To say the truth, I didn't realize we didn't have cable anymore. Shame on me, being in this building and not realizing. And because of it, so many residents, because this is a bedroom community, do not know what's been going on. And when they find out from other people, oftentimes they're coming to us. They just feel that the chamber knows everything. And again, because we're sitting in City Hall. How do you explain this? Please, please, I beg of everybody, start thinking about the residents. They're who put you in office. They're who are expecting you to do the right things. And I'm sorry if I'm upset, but that's how it is. And I probably shouldn't have got up here, but I had to. I can hardly stand it anymore. I've actually thought about stepping away. I really have, because it hurts me so much. So please think about what you're doing.
Sorry, honey. I got to get this off. My problem was the November 3rd meeting. When in July, your effective dates for the interim was the next municipal election, which was November 2nd. So as far as I'm concerned, that should be taken into account to clear this whole thing up with Georges. He should have never been up here. You should have never been up here on November 3rd. Your effective date was November 2nd. That is in the charter and that is in the minutes. That alone should clarify everything that happened last night. And I think the council and Mr. Rennes should take that into consideration and cancel that meeting, because it should have never happened with those two up there. Their effective date was the day before.
Thank you.
My name's Walter Bills. I live on Grant Avenue. I want to say I agree wholeheartedly with the last two speakers here. But the other thing is, City Attorney, I don't know why Yo and Yo didn't say anything about it, but there's technically a CPA withholding work papers that are necessary for you to continue is against the Code of Ethics, and it's an acts discreditable. And I would call the Michigan State Board of Public Accountancy and light a fire under their butt. That's what I would do before spending $15,000. I mean, there's no reason they can't do that. It's against their code of ethics. And so I know that was on the agenda, but I think I would try that like immediately, because I think they can cut right to the quick and they might be able to fix it right away, because they just can't do it. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Anybody else? Okay, let's go to the next item on our agenda. Thank you to everyone who came to speak tonight. We appreciate the volunteerism, we appreciate your passion, and we do know we're here for you. So thank you for all of that. The next item on our agenda is the City Attorney's Report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, pursuant to your motion last night seeking an independent opinion on the issues of the appointment of Mr. Georges, I reached out to a couple of attorneys, as indicated to you last night. They'll be available and willing to provide a legal opinion concerning your motion last evening. I personally spoke with the attorneys at Michigan Justice, and I looked for attorneys that would be outside of our area so that there would be no concerns with respect to them having any stake or any involvement in our proceedings and our processes. So I spoke personally with the attorneys at Michigan Justice, which is out of Utica, Michigan. That's Attorney Paul Addis and Mr. Antofsky over there. They're municipal attorneys. They do this kind of stuff day in and day out. I believe they still represent Utica themselves, but they do municipal work for their clients. I also reached out and spoke personally to Magistrate Jim Verplug, who is a full-time magistrate at the 41A District Court that's in Shelby Township. He has been an attorney, obviously, for a long time, full-time magistrate over there. He also would agree and would be available and willing to do that, to do the opinion as sought out by counsel. On prior occasion when we had a similar issue, I had also reached out to, I didn't this time, but I know that they would probably be available and willing to do that. I reached out to Walton Scally, also out of Macomb County, and John Gonzalez out of Wayne County. Counsel, obviously these names would mean little to you, and your decision will be somewhat, fully on the blind, I presume. These are, I figured, based on the motion of counsel, I wanted to be proactive and have something available to you, but ultimately that's your decision.
So per our 6:45 workshop meeting, we did discuss this with what Mr. Nushai has just stated. I also stated that I wanted to know if it was possible for us to submit our own attorneys for consideration as well. Not, of course, people that we know personally and might have a slant on something, but I know that people I've spoken with have had concerns about just taking a list from anybody at this point, and might want to broaden the pool. And you also said that we would have the opportunity to contact these people in advance, do a little bit of talk with them, and see if we want to vet them personally on our own prior to making a final determination on and vote on whom we would go forward with. So that's kind of where we are.
Absolutely. And I think that's perfectly appropriate. And as I indicated to you at the prior meeting, you are going in the blind, so it's perfectly appropriate to reach out to the attorneys that I've suggested, to have your individual conversations with them. So at the very least, you have some peace of mind. We as attorneys do this routinely, as I indicated to you at the pre-hearing. Particularly when we go out of county, where we deal with situations of attorneys with whom we're not familiar with, we reach out and just have those basic preliminary conversation. Perfectly appropriate, entirely within the scope of this.
Okay, thank you. Do you have anything else?
And I believe the gentlelady asked me a question. I think my opinion, there's actually two opinions that I'd written, I think will address the gentlelady's question during public comment. I'll collect her information, or she may reach out, thank you, she may reach out, both Ms. Bills and the other gentlelady, whose name I forget. But you may reach out to me, or I'll collect your emails and I'll forward those opinions and for what it's worth. Thank you.
I got a question for you. We look at the tape from that meeting. The mayor asked you if we should swear him in, and you said no. I didn't need to. Was that good legal advice at that moment, or bad?
I think we'll, yeah. Well, Mr. Sampson, I think that legal advice will either stand on its own legs or fall on its own under the weight of whatever legal opinion that might come about. I think at this particular point, council made a motion last evening to solicit an opinion, an independent legal opinion. I think it's perfectly appropriate. I thought it was momentous, and I think it is perfectly appropriate so that we may submit, so that this body can submit all the issues concerning the appointment to the outside attorney, and you can have the determination. You can have a determination that can help move forward, whatever it may be. I think that's appropriate. I think otherwise, to engage in this back and forth, I think that motion will accomplish it. The motion accomplishes the task and will accomplish the task.
Anything else?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Next thing would be our city manager's report.
What was that motion? What are we going to do with that motion we had? Is he
What motion?
If we don't do something now, he won't start on something.
What are you talking about?
So we would need, I think what his reference is, your motion was to solicit the legal opinion. But what I think Mr. Sampson is saying, whom are you going to select? Because you also gave a deadline within 30 days. So I presume that I will provide you what I would recommend. I'll provide you the contact information for these attorneys through email after this meeting. And you may have your contact, but we would need to move, obviously, with respect to soliciting or your decision. The decision would have to be in an open meeting.
Can we do a special meeting next week?
Well, the mayor or as you know, the mayor or any two members of council may call for a special meeting.
He needs you. So,
Madam Mayor, may I ask questions of this attorney?
yes, you may, of course.
Rennis, I have a few questions. When I first was sent a sample ballot by Oakland County, they said, please review the sample ballot and ensure that your name is spelled correctly and there are no errors. So I looked upon it, I thought, well, my name's spelled correctly, it's a good start. And then I also noticed there were only two people that said vote for two. So on or about August 27th, I called I called the county clerk's office to find out, they print the ballots, what's the situation? They said, you'll need to talk to the city attorney. So I called you on or about August 27th. You had a very patient, you were very patient with me, and you gave me a very involved explanation as to why there were only two names on the ballot. At that time, you told me that based on your best reading of the charter, that only two of the seats could be filled by election, and the third one had to be selected by council. You said it would be the new council, not the old. You also said that to fill that seat by the new council, you would recommend that the candidate who got the third number of votes would be selected. But you also mentioned that that would be your advice. It would not be binding. So I thought to myself, well, okay, that seems to make sense. In other words, Kathy Phillips' seat, which still had 2 years left on it, would be filled by the new council. So, moving forward to November 3rd, I received an email from you, as did Ms. Milan, about 10:45 in the morning, I believe. I was at work, I quickly read the email, and the gist of your email was basically reiterating what you told me before, and that we had 30 days to do this, so please address the issue with urgency. I looked at that and thought, well, good. Then Rennis told me something in August, told me something in November, it all added up. And then we came to the meeting, and you again pretty much reiterate for a third time what you told me before. And then, after you reiterated that, I saw a process occur to where somehow this legal mechanism or illegal mechanism where Mr. Georges could resign and then he could then fill Kathy Phillips' seat. Okay? As that unfolded before our eyes, that caused a stir in this audience like I've never seen before. Maybe nobody in this room has ever seen that before. Now, I'm not an attorney. I don't know the legality of that situation. It looks like we're going to try to secure some kind of an outside mediator, mediator, to determine that. I think what's important here, there's such a thing as legality, and there's such a thing as credibility. I'm not going to comment as to the legality. I'm not an attorney. But I will comment on the credibility of that process. I think it completely lacked credibility, and I would prefer it be addressed outside of a legal system. So in other words, the mechanism whereby Mr. Georges was supposedly seated, I would like to hear Mr. Georges resign. This is my statement. But I am concerned that, again, we went into that meeting, I had 3 witnesses from you saying the same thing, and then what occurred before the people was something different. So
I agree with that statement wholeheartedly.
Okay.
I have a question. If, in order to run for a seat, you have to resign your former seat, right? I don't know if someone called me and to remind me to submit that letter of resignation, or if I just did it on that Friday when the ballots were due, but mine went in on time. Why then, if someone's didn't go in on time, were they either allowed to run for office or, I mean, that's the whole problem right here. We're saying that someone's failure to submit a form stating, I hereby relinquish my seat because I'm running for another office, held up this whole thing and caused all of this problem. Why did we allow that to happen?
You're talking about the third seat, Kathy Phillips's seat?
Yes.
Was she resigned after the filing? It was accepted after the filing deadline. So that wasn't a decision by anybody in this city. That was a county decision.
But if you are supposed to resign by such and such date and you don't do it, then you shouldn't be able to run. That's what I'm saying. I mean, the fact that it's just a catch thing.
Yeah, no, I understand your point. I'm not quarreling with it, actually. But it's not a decision that anybody in the city can make, that we don't control. Nobody here, our clerk doesn't control that. Nobody controls that here. It's not a determination by us. It's a determination by Oakland County.
Okay, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me, but, okay, does anyone have anything else for our esteemed attorney? Let's move to our esteemed acting city manager then.
We're going to do something with it.
Oh, yeah, whatever, yeah, of course. What do we have to do again?
Find a mediator. Right?
No, you're going to send us the papers. You're going to send us a list tomorrow. We're going to review it. Let's set a deadline where they have to be back, and then we'll set a meeting for next week or whatever.
Fair.
We have to meet in person to do this.
Yeah, it has to be an open meeting.
Yes. Is everyone fine with that?
Make the motion that we have a special meeting next Tuesday.
I don't want to have a special meeting next Tuesday. I'll make a motion. Does anyone have any calendar constraints? Because this whole picking a day and not asking people, it really annoys me. Because some of us have schedules. You probably do sometimes too. So does anyone have any scheduling constraints next week on Monday? Let's schedule a meeting on Monday. You're going to say yes?
Well, no, we have a Board of Ethics workshop.
At 6:30 in the conference room.
In the conference
not here.
room, so, but typically.
How long will that take?
Well, typically,
There's no, it's a workshop. They could go,
10 minutes or an hour?
they're going to, I expect it to be an hour. I know there's stuff that
I
people want to talk
presume
about.
we
Now,
can
I've only
step
heard
out.
back from 2 of them to confirm, but I did plan to post it tomorrow. If I don't hear back from 2 more members, I'll try a different date.
Could
But
we-
I've been pushing to
So
hear.
they may not have a quorum.
Doesn't matter, it's a workshop.
Oh,
Don't
okay.
need a quorum.
All right.
But I'll suggest another date if I don't hear back from 2 of the members that I was expecting to hear from already.
Let's shoot for Monday at 7:30.
Thank you.
Does that work? Okay.
So you're officially calling a special meeting for Monday at 7:30?
22nd.
Officially doing that.
So the 22nd, right?
So doesn't that sound official?
Yes.
Okay, let's now, are you ready,
I'll post that tomorrow.
Chief slash?
Topic for that Monday meeting is selecting an outside firm to move forward on last night's motion, correct?
Yes.
Just so August has the correct information.
That's the only, yeah.
The only
The only
topic.
topic. That's, well, it's a public meeting.
7:30.
So
7:30.
it's, business can be conducted.
Okay, thank you. Now, again, we're going to try and go to the city manager's report.
I have nothing more to add at this point.
Don't get excited, I have something to add for you. So this evening, we heard from at least one resident who, or maybe 2, who said they were concerned about getting these meetings and all other public meetings back on cable so that the general public who do not have computers or not tech savvy can have access to this. I know this is something that has to be addressed with our videographer, but I think it's something that we absolutely need to address, and it needs to be done quickly. We're excluding a whole segment of our population, and it's not fair. So could you please look into that for us?
It was, Nick, what is the latest update?
Of course Nick has the answer.
Hopefully. So during the turnover due to COVID, of the former staff member there who did all of the video recording for the meetings, that position was vacant for a while. As the meetings were on Zoom, it wasn't necessary to have that position filled. When Merge Live came on, some of the processes changed, and according to them and their conversations, those meetings have been live on cable. Now, they have not been on the live playback, which is why I think there's been some confusion. There's been some technicality and, what's the word I'm looking for? Software that we don't have. And as the meetings are on YouTube, that's a very accessible product. And since they're live on cable, that's what we've been doing with for now.
Okay, that's not good enough. So just speaking for the people, and this isn't detrimental to you, it is not good enough. We want to do what we had before, or the closest thing that we can, so that we can meet that segment of the population as well. So would you please look into that for us?
We'll talk with
Thank
Merge
you.
Live.
We
and see
can
what
talk
we
to
go
Ken
from here.
by this week. We'll see if we can get it up and running for Monday.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So, thank you.
Okay, and then another thing for you, acting city manager slash chief slash title of all titles, training for city council. I know we're kind of not into a full council, so I'd like to set a date just 30 days out, or how many of our dates out now, 29 days out, so that we can begin the things that would be beneficial for this council, which I would like to include meetings with all of the department heads, perhaps setting up a tour for any new council members who would like to tour facilities. I would like something included on OMA and all of the other things that we are technically required to do due to events that occurred over the last 2 years. And then I would just like everyone on this council to have the same basic information on what their roles and responsibilities are. I would just like us to have all the basic business items for the city and contact information, the equipment. I don't think people have been issued equipment yet. I'd just like us up and running, please.
All right, so as far as packets, the city attorney's wrapping up informational packets for all of council? Oh,
I don't want it to be a packet only, I'd like it to be a presentation. Whether, I know that the MML is doing their new, so you've been elected campaign, right, coming up. I've done it. We either video that and watch it together, or we come up with something a little bit more involved. I would say, having seen it. So just allows people to ask questions and a little more interactive. And probably any of you are capable of doing that. We probably don't need an outside person. I mean, heck, I'll do it if you want. But we just need to say we did it, and we need to do it so that people can ask questions and then be prepared.
So are you talking the one day that MML puts on? I know Councilman Shepherd signed up for it. I sent the link, but there's also an actual elected officials academy, which is several.
It's different. It's,
maybe you've done-
it's a lot of
I just want to make sure
different
everyone had that access to that advanced training as well.
No. Yeah, they're easy now. You can do them online, which
Correct.
is kind of fun. I did mine while I was driving home from work one day. That was good. When they were wanting you to be live on it, I was like, oh my gosh, you're not supposed to be live and driving and doing that. But I was, and it all worked out fine. So. Just checking if you guys are awake. That's all. This is all this is about. Okay, so no other questions for our city manager? How about you, August? Do you have anything for us this evening? Are you giving me that look like, can we get out of here?
No, just that was just about the last comment. No, I do have 2 iPads that were turned in to me. I do believe they've been wiped and cleaned off. If you want them, let me know. They were pretty much unused by the last couple council members, but I have them, so that's there.
Great. Then with that, are we going to close session?
Yes, we need a motion to do so.
I'm looking at this. Oh, yeah, it's on the other side. Okay, so the next thing is, would any city council member like to make comments tonight?
I'm good, thanks.
No? Okay, then the next item on the agenda is consideration of going into closed session to discuss the pending litigation regarding 165 Hendrickson pursuant to Section 8E of the Open Meetings Act, as well as Section 13(1)G of the Freedom of Information Act.
Mayor, I move to enter into closed session to discuss the pending litigation regarding 165 Hendrickson pursuant to Section 8E of the Open Meetings Act, as well as Section 13(1)G of the Freedom of Information Act.
I'll support that.
I see we have a visitor, and I'd like to.
He's the one that's.
Oh, you're the. You're
am
the
the
one.
one that-
I was
I
gonna
am
say.
the one here for the closed session, yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
I
just came up and just answered a question ahead of
I
time.
was like, I don't know what
Yeah.
Councilman
Councilmember Shepherd?
Let's see.
Yes.
Okay, so for the public, if you'd like to hang around and see us walk back in and adjourn the meeting, you're welcome to. If you've had enough fun for one evening, we thank you for coming, and hope you'll come back again next time. Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, did you want to do this in the conference room or here?
I don't care.
Conference room.
Conference room seems to be the preferred method for most folks, because it's completely devoid of all microphones that could be on, so. All right, we got to take the roll call vote, though, so. Councilman Shepherd?
Can I-
Yes.
Councilman
Anderson?
Excuse me, I'd just like to make a positive announcement.
In the middle of a roll call vote, Char.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm deaf.
Mayor
you know
Milan?
that.
Yes,
Councilmember Sampson? We are adjourned to go to closed session.
go ahead, Char.
Char, go ahead.
Several of the residents have had concerns about
Can we buy new chairs this year?
We're good? Okay, we're good.
Huh?
I'd love to.
Thank you.
These are horrible, these are,
Okay, we're back from our little workshop, and I'd like to reopen our meeting in time to,
Mayor, I move to approve and accept the judgment with the owners of 165 Hendrickson.
I'll support that.
all in agreement?
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilman Sampson.
Yes.
Shepherd.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
That passes. Accepted.
Madam Mayor, make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
Very wise motion, all agreed.
Sampson.
Yes.
Shepherd.
Yes.
Anderson. Milan. We are adjourned at how many 100 hours, sir? 50 p.m. 21:50.